Of course, they went down today, and then they went up again, and they're probably down again as I speak. That's the problem at the moment. They're all over the place. The power shortages. Now, this is an important thing because, at least the way we understand it, is that these power shortages are not primarily through lack of capacity in China. It is power stations not wanting to turn on their generators because they're losing so much money, because coal prices are partly deregulated, but power prices have not been. And this all goes to the heart of China's inflation combating strategy, which is essentially prices won't go up because we say they're not going to go up, as opposed to the economic issues. And that hurts companies. Robert Lee, I mean, are you seeing that impact at the moment? That China's pricing policy, I should say, price fixing policy, is causing problems.
I think the energy and the oil price is affecting every country in the world. China, they already prepare a long-term strategy. That's why even though the gas company, some they are losing money, but by the end of the year, they have to subsidize from the country. Basically, China, now they also find many different ways in changing, using less oil, like now the automobile industry. They are encouraging the industry using the battery or in other way to replace the oil. I think BYD today, they are doing a good job. They are gradually changing a lot of energy from oil to battery. And also the solar panel device. In the northern part of China, there are many new housing at the roof, at the top of the house, the building. They already equipped with solar panel so that they save a lot of electricity and also oil. And also there are many, many different ways. They're trying, they're testing. I think in the coming 2 years, we can find there are a lot of new ways to solve this problem. And it is the basic problem for the whole world. So I think all countries, they are doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm. And Alan, a more general question that on China's governing by edict on prices. Does it affect your industry, you know?
That's also affecting actually because we are, you know, the factories in particularly the southern part of China. But I think, as I said, that the company have to be, you know, to very learn fast enough to have a very flexible, you know, to approach, and the management teams also have capabilities to tackle all this problem because everything is talking about efficiencies, and also we need to upgrade our people. In our organization, we actually established a training school to train those people and workers and, you know, company culture so that there is a company to care about the employee so that, you know, we can move together. Otherwise, it's just falling apart, you see. So actually,
yeah, that's another interesting thing, the training, the developing the next generation. Yeah. Foxconn got a lot of bad publicity earlier this year, as we all know. And rightly or wrongly, it gave the impression of sweatshop China again. How fast is that changing?
Well, we actually we need to realize that the people, the worker, you know, basically are changes because the company established a long time ago, and the worker, 30% the worker for us still talking about more than 10 years. But if you compare with that, you know, 10 years ago worker and now the people coming in, there are really a differences. Even their mindset, probably they are younger generations. They care about their, you know, okay, what I can learn from the enterprise, what were the benefits. I'm going to sell my business later on, you know, this kind of thinking. So we actually have to be spend quite a lot of time on the people development, and then so let that, you know, to look about it, or the company actually have a, you know, career development for them, and they train them at the same time, you know, this for the futures. So this is a human resources investments definitely to help the manufacturer is a key point also for the manufacturer in China.
Okay, we've just got a few minutes left of this panel. Any other questions out there, or anecdotes if you want? Any examples of what you think is going on? Yeah, we have one right down the front, and the microphone heading to you, Eve. Or maybe not. Is there a microphone? Okay. Okay.
I have a little question to Darius. So I couldn't hear all his speech, but I know he did a country review, and we have some worries about Vietnam. And I would like to hear his view. Do you think that hard landing in Vietnam is something that's likely to happen?
Vietnam is a very interesting case. I was there in April last time, and there is concern in the banking community and in the manufacturing community about short-term outlook in particular, because we are observing a decline of foreign direct investments occurring right now, because those investors are concerned that macro stability is gone, with inflation running at above 17% year on year, and with an unusually huge devaluation of the dong. My take on it is that Vietnam will probably avoid hard landing because the government still has the ability to stimulate domestic investments, and because the devaluation of the currency and policy tightening on the interest rate front seems to have stabilized the FX markets for now. So non-deliverable forwards markets are not implying such a large future devaluation anymore as they used to a couple of months ago. And as long as we get this macroeconomic stability, investments will come back. So what we are seeing in Vietnam right now is that growth will be 6.5% this year. It's less than the government targeted initially, but then they reduced the target. But they have a good chance of avoiding a hard landing if they continue implementing the monetary tightening policies until inflation comes down.
I just want to wrap up with one general question to each of the panel before we wrap up here. And it comes down to what Sun Ming Chun was saying about his deep concern about the second half of this year for China in particular. Asset bubble followed by a crash, a collapse in investment, et cetera, et cetera. Now, second half of the decade is not very far away. So companies, hopefully, will be planning for that event if they think it's going to happen. So I just want to hear briefly, 5 years down the road, do you have plans for the world then? Alan?
Well, as I mentioned, that the company have to be, very competitive enough in terms of every aspect, the management style, the people, and the systems so they can have a capability to change, to transform this, to a high-end strategies. Of course, the people is quite
right,
important.
But are you working in the assumption that at any point in the next few years there could be a big market crash?
We expect that we are facing the challenge every day. So the company approach is sometimes a bit the conservative, and we have to the financial very sound, and so that we can overcome all these challenges like the financial crisis before.
I just want a follow-up question on that, actually. There's a point that is very worth mentioning at the moment for Chinese companies listed in the US.
Yes.
Also getting quite a lot of bad publicity at the moment. You're listed on NASDAQ.
Yes.
Does that affect you at all? I mean, do you get investors calling you up and saying,
it does, because even though we are listed in US for a long time, but for those companies, particularly for these 2 years, and quite a lot of Chinese company, potential company, from OTC to uplist to the listed, that they have problem. They're under investigation by the SEC. But they will also affect it because I just mentioned that we are also looking after, looking some target company, Chinese company, and they just need to be, hesitation for going through this kind of backdoor listing in US.
Okay, that was a separate issue, but a fascinating one at the moment. Robert Lee, once again, are you working at all on the basis that 5 years down the line we could see a big crash in China?
I think the only thing we can do is we do everything very safely, very steadily. And also we believe China, they have a very strong government. It doesn't like other countries in the world. Once that kind of thing happens, they will have a very serious way to stop it or to make it stabilize. And it is not easy like this in China, because the media in China is different from other countries in the world.
Something, Joe, I'm going to come back to you last because I want to get your take on something you actually said. But Darius, likewise, I mean, you in some I mean, you weren't as dramatic, I guess, if you want to put it that way, as Sun Ming-chun on the crash coming up, but you don't see the demand there either. So my question to you really is, are companies, are investors out there, are they prepared?
I don't think that we are prepared at this point, because I totally agree with Ming-chun in terms of the need for Chinese companies to move up the value scale quickly. But at the same time, the risk perhaps is not as dramatic, because we are going to see, at least by our projections, a sharp drop in the number of working population. So perhaps some of the losses at the lower end manufacturing jobs, or perhaps in rural jobs, will simply be absorbed by the aging population and the decline in the number of people between 15 and 65 years old. So to some degree, I wouldn't be so worried of the social implications. But I do think that a lot of work needs to be done to move up the value scale quite quickly.
Okay. And Sun Ming-chun, then finally, how bad is it going to be? You gave us an indication, but in human terms, lack of preparedness for companies, if that's the case, how bad could it be in the second half?
Very good question, actually, because I need to clarify. I'm talking about China crisis, something like maybe half of Japan, something like US today. But you look at my flow chart, and everything goes to one box, fiscal burden. Like Robert talked about, China has a strong government, so they can use money, the government use money to do a lot of things to try to solve this problem. So eventually, China's public debt to GDP will rise from today's 25%, probably to 80%, maybe actually still less than Greece. But what I mean that's the solution. But after that, we are no longer going to see China growing at 8%, 9%, because that model is over.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed for that, the panel once again. We're not finished yet. We've got more to come, about another 15 minutes, in fact, to go. We're going to hear from Yves Zlotowski in just a moment, and we're going to hear from Richard Burton to wrap things up. But before all of that, to Darius, to Ming-chun, to Robert and Alan, big hand for them. Thank you very much indeed.